living. Crypto is on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradigm. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Alrighty, good morning from Paradise Surfers. It is Thursday, December 18th. My name is Crypto Amaru, joined as always by Crypto Hitman. Happy to be with you guys today. We got some great stories to cover. This Solana and Pump.fun legal drama continues to be a major story, and I can't help but wonder, is this the beginning of the end for that chain? Perhaps I'm overreacting. Perhaps that's an exaggeration, but we will discuss because I think there's some meaningful risk behind it. The inflation data for, I believe it was October or November, just dropped. Much lower than expected, and you're seeing markets react accordingly. Is this data to be trusted? Is this the start of a trend? Remember, this data was born out of the government shutdown, so some are questioning how much it can be trusted. We will discuss the data, where we think it is going to take our beloved risk assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Pulse Chain, and others. Alrighty. Perhaps we can take a look at the chart, because it feels like we had a little bit of a pump here. I don't know. I just got a little notification on my phone. How are things looking today?
Yeah, I'll pop that up here shortly. I was trying to pull up Trueflation to see what their data is compared to the CPI data, because we're going to talk about that. And apparently now you got to create an account to see that information. So, you know, I guess they're trying to lock that down a bit. Their data's been so good, at least they want your email address for that, so we won't be showing that today. Apparently I don't even have a true account there. But let's take a look at the charts. What is going on? We saw a green candle before we even got live. They knew we were about to get live, so they had to go do a green candle. But giving up some of the gains. Bitcoin again holding in. New higher lows coming off the oversold RSI, coming off the oversold technometer, and trying to rally out of here. Again, getting rejected at the overhead resistance on the 200 moving average, even this morning on the green candle. This move was based off the CPI data. Let's see if we get the crypto paradise pump, get some follow through now that the markets are open. But we do know that pesky seller continues to sell. At least that's what it looked like yesterday, as we ran up to almost $91,000. And then, boom, straight back down into a new low at 85,300. I mean, we're just in chop here. We need to break out above this yellow line. I've said that all the way back here. We keep getting rejected. We need to break above that, make that support, flip resistance support, and then we target the 95,000 by the end of the year. That makes MicroStrategy happy, that makes investors happy, and that gets Michael Saylor buying more Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's really hard to trust any pump when yesterday it looked like we were running a little paradise pump going on. I think right after the live stream, things were running back up to like 92 or something like that. I forget how high it got. And then, bam, right back down. Huge red candle, basically the same size as the green one. Clear signs of manipulation. Clear signs of market makers and exchanges trying to wipe out leverage traders. It's been a really difficult, past couple months since October 10th. I mean, I think that's when everything really shifted and changed in the markets. I don't trust this pump until we see this big sellers running out of Bitcoin, or and we break out from some of this range here. But I also don't hate that we're consolidating at these levels. If we can consolidate here, let the sellers out without breaking down too much further, and then we can run, sometime, in Q1, once the sellers are out of Bitcoin. I don't hate that scenario. I just don't really want to see it going lower, and hate to see this much selling and this much manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, 95,000 by the end of the year is obviously very possible. You saw yesterday we ran from like 85,000 to 91,000 all in a 4-hour span. So very possible, and that happens to be right where overhead resistance is going to be. The 300 moving average up here is at $94,900. So let's see if we can get up there. Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin by 2% today. Trying to get back to the mental barrier of 3,000. You can look at this. Holding Paradise Pump up to resistance, got rejected, new low, and now we're trying to attack the yellow line again, up 4%. Needs to get back above that 3,000 level, but again, it's the same chart, guys. 200 moving average is yellow. We need to get above that, flip it to resistance, attack the 300 moving average, which is red. I'm sure we'll get rejected at least once, and then once we get above that, all the doubters flip long, all the traders will stop trading every pump, and maybe we can actually get some follow through on the upside. Again, Thomas Lee bought another $100 million or $140 million worth of Ethereum on the dip yesterday. At some point, he's going to run out of cash too, and he needs to be right and needs to get other market participants to be buying, holding, and staking Ethereum.
It's good to see Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin. We've been on that for a few months now, and that continues to be the trend. And I expect will continue throughout the remainder of this cycle. But yeah, I mean, we're still sub 3,000. We're still close to max fear, max pain levels. You know, a lot of manipulation happening on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's not a whole lot to be super excited for at this moment in time. And you just kind of have to get through these consolidations, these boredom, these fearful periods. And eventually we will see the price break out. I do think a lot of this is manipulation, price suppression, forced selling from perhaps, Wintermute, who may have been fully liquidated on 1010. Again, I think the fallout from 1010 was more significant and severe than we initially thought, and we're still kind of living through the results of that. And it's taken, we're 8 to 10 weeks out, kind of similar to the FTX crash. It takes about 8 to 10 to 12 weeks for the markets to heal. And we're still healing from that.
Yeah, the data on that actually is after the FTX crash, it was 8 weeks until the bottom was found and the uptrend continued. And this is week number 8 right now after the liquidation crisis. So will that repeat itself? I don't know. Yesterday we also looked at the average market path following the last 5 times Bitcoin's RSI broke below 30. That just happened again. We're on day like 20, which means the lows should be in, and now we continue to head higher over the remaining 10 days of the year. We should easily get that $95,000 to $100,000 Bitcoin potentially if we kind of follow one for one with that. I'll pull that chart up again in case you guys missed it yesterday, as I think this is an interesting one. Again, remember this is from yesterday, so we are a day further in the progression. We're probably right about here on the black line. Black line is current Bitcoin action. Pink line is the average of the last 5 times Bitcoin was oversold. I mean, pretty close correlation here. And again, the black line would be moved forward 1 day, which means we're about 20 days after that oversold reading happened. And you can see here 30 days would put us right around the 95 to 100K mark, which would be by the end of the year. And then 80 days after that, which would be another 60 days from today, would put you somewhere above $160,000. Now, I don't know if we follow this, we get to 160 in 60 days. It doesn't really matter. I would love 95,000 by the end of the year. I would love to hit new all-time highs on Bitcoin. Where does it go? Of course, I want it to be an extended cycle, $244,000 Bitcoin to allow Ethereum to go to 22,000. But we just need to break new highs to convince the 4-year cyclists that they were wrong. There is a lot of sideline cash, a lot of bears, and they will FOMO in when the cycle is clearly broken, and that happens at $126,000 Bitcoin.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you pulled up this chart again. I needed a little hopium in my life, a little positivity. I mean, it's just been brutal out here, really, since October. We hit the all-time highs of 126K, and I don't think, by the way, us bulls thought that was it, because you'd still expect another, 30, 40K price appreciation from that level to kind of hit your historical precedents from previous cycles on Bitcoin. And then bam, it's just been ultra bearish, ultra fearful, doom and gloom. Since that time, our portfolios are wrecked. We're feeling it. You guys are feeling it, but we're showing up each and every day, trying to bring a little positivity and a little hopium. I will say this. I don't know if this chart's going to play out exactly as, for preordained based on, this overlay here. But I do know markets eventually recover. I do know Bitcoin is eventually going to go higher than its current price. And I do know Ethereum is going to go higher than its current price. outside of that, outside of those two predictions, specific altcoins and things like that, I'm not going out on a limb quite yet on those. But it's all going to work out. We will get a bounce here. We will get a recovery. But man, it's been doom and gloom. So I just want to give a little shout out to our loyal community members. Good morning to Moonmutt. Good morning, Nanso. A Hero Kitten. Good morning to you. I like to see new faces in here. Lots of news today. Absolutely, Martin. Good morning, Jay. And good morning to Todd. Remember to remind people like, share, and subscribe. All right. I don't know if you want to talk more about charts or prices, but we got some other stories to cover too.
Yeah, we're going to cover this one first here on the Twitter feed. Richard Hart says MetaMask has reached out to him and would like to make things better for Pulse Chain. Very specifically, tell me what you need fixed in concise and replicable description. I already told them about the difficulty with adding the free ERC20 copy tokens for the full system state. Let's hear it. So, I mean, if true, which I don't think he's going to get on here and lie, he's already fought the SEC and has Interpol and whatever. That means somebody from MetaMask has reached out and said, hey, all right, we got some bandwidth. We got a dev on the case. What can we do to improve the interactive features between Pulse Chain and MetaMask? As you know, Pulse Chain is a layer 1, but it is EVM compatible and built off a system state of Ethereum, kind of using Ethereum as the test net for Pulse Chain. But you also know if you're new to Pulse Chain or coming in, you got to like go in there and you got to add Pulse Chain to MetaMask, which isn't that unfamiliar. But then it's on the custom network tab. It's not on the main tab. You know, if you go on there, you'll see Base is on there, Ethereum's on there, BNB's on there, Polygon automatically. When you get a MetaMask and you get a private key, that's what I told them. I said, hey, if you can get it as a mandatory automatic network on MetaMask, that would be huge for onboarding. And then, of course, he wants it to be easier to add tokens because there's the PRC20 copies and the ERC20s. And then, of course, it would be nice to see, just like you do on Ethereum, an actual dollar value of your holdings for your Pulse Chain tokens as well. So if you have any ideas, throw them on Richard Hart's tweet on how to improve Pulse Chain's interaction with MetaMask. But again, this is a step in the right direction for the entire ecosystem, not only Pulse Chain, but crypto as a whole. Because in order to onboard new people, you need the easiest UI, UX possible, the easiest onboarding possible. And trying to get rid of having to add that network is a little bit of a hurdle for newcomers as well.
Yeah, I say about damn time. They just added Bitcoin support to MetaMask as well recently, which was a pretty big upgrade, I would say. And then let's make sure Pulse Chain's fully integrated. Yeah, the other thing I'll mention, it's odd. My MetaMask works better with Pulse Chain on my old computer where I haven't done like a recent update to MetaMask. And on my new computer where I have like the newest version of MetaMask, sometimes it doesn't even show my tokens that I'm holding in my wallet. I like go to like, import token. And normally, okay, import, and it shows and pops up and there, you can see it on your MetaMask. It doesn't work half the time. And so I don't know, they really got to work on that from a MetaMask standpoint, work with Richard Hart, work with the devs, get it done. We need full MetaMask support for Pulse Chain, and I think that will help onboard new users when the time comes. But probably won't make much difference for price. That's going to be driven more by alt season and liquidity and things of that nature.
Oh, of course. But it's a step in the right direction. I think it's good to see him still talking, see him trying to expand the web, and the fact that MetaMask, in his words, reached out to him. That's good that there is some recognition there. And we see today Pulse Chain up 2%, PLS up 3%, Inc up 10%, and Hex up 4%. Still got a long way to go on those, but the market likes the tweet. The market likes the rally from Ethereum, likes the CPI information, and hey, a little bit of green never hurts somebody. And everybody's like, oh my God, I'm still down on this, that, or that. Hey, you got to start somewhere with any of these prices. Remember, Ethereum was just $1,200, $1,300. Now it's back to $3,000. Has it been fun? Has it been euphoric? Has it rolled into alts? No, but it has doubled up in price over the past, 6 months, 8 months, and you got to start somewhere. You can't hope for the moon, but then not root for small wins and small green candles because you got to grind higher before you can have euphoria.
Oh yeah, and if we're grinding higher, you're not going to hear any complaints from me. It's more just, further crashes that really irk me. So yeah, grinding higher, consolidating, I got no issues. Whether we're talking about Pulse Chain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, any asset, you need that before you can get to this sort of parabolic phase of the market, which is probably coming sometime in 2026. All right. Look, some good news for once too, driving the markets higher. CPI data coming in well below expectations, well below. I mean, this is, to me, on its face, excellent news, and shows that the market, excuse me, the economy is trending in the direction we've said it's going to continue to trend in, which is worsening labor market conditions and lowering inflation, right? Less inflation. And it's trending in those directions. The labor market's deteriorating and inflation's going down, as you would expect. As people are struggling to find jobs, companies are not hiring as much, there's more layoffs, wages aren't really going up. Then, of course, prices go down with that as companies realize, wait, we can't charge as much to these these brokies in the normal economy. So it's going in tandem. It's going in the directions we expected. And to me, further evidence that the Fed must be cutting rates at the end of January.
Yeah, Powell's only hesitancy, he was dovish last rate cut. They cut it for the third time. We were right on that. He was dovish instead of hawkish for the first time, like he was in the first two. And the only concern he had was potential rising inflation due to prolonged tariffs. Well, here we go. We just beat expectations by 0.4%, a major beat to the downside, with the consumer inflation being down to 2.7% due to this data. Remember, this number is usually quite a bit larger than Trueflation, because Trueflation is using live data. This is using lag data. I need to create an account on Trueflation so I can show that for you. It'd be interesting to know what Trueflation data is showing. If this is showing 2.7, that leads me to believe Trueflation is probably somewhere between 2.2 to 2.4% inflation, which is well within the target of 2 to 3%, which is the target for the Fed. But also, you as a citizen, you got to understand inflation is always happening. And historically, Trump put a term together that was 8%, an average of 2% per year in his first term. And now he's trying to do that here. If he can close the year somewhere around 2 to 2.4%, he's well on his way to doing what the best he can by the citizens and keeping inflation as low as he can. Because inflation never goes away. It always compounds, and that's why the spending power of the dollar keeps going down and to the right.
The only caveat to this excellent news is the data itself may not be complete, because a lot of it was gathered during the government shutdown. Now, I haven't looked fully into that sort of argument and if there's any real credence to that, but you may see some talking heads suggest that, well, we can't really trust this data, let's wait till more data comes in, blah, blah, blah. But to me, looking like this 25 basis point cut, much more likely as of today than it was even yesterday. The poly market change, I think, is relatively small. We were at like 25%. I think now we're at like 28%, if I can see the screen. So not a big jump there, but it's exactly what Powell wanted to see. Lower inflation, worsening labor market. What else are you asking for at this point, man? Just cut the rates.
Yeah, I mean, after the news, we see that this moved a little bit, but not much. Yesterday in the live show, there was only a 25% chance of a rate cut. Now it's up to 28%, and the no change has dropped from 75 down to 71. So it continues to trend in the direction of crypto paradise, and I bet you by January 27th, we do get another rate cut. If they pause, I mean, it's possible, but I do expect them to quickly follow up with some more rate cuts. And then in May, which isn't here, we get a new Fed chair who is going to be dovish, who is going to do everything he can to pump the markets, rate cuts, stimulate economy, whatever it may be, because that is what he's been saying for like a year now. He's also more pro-Trump ideology and pro-Bitcoin ideology, and that's just the nature of the beast when he gets in power. I know he's still only one vote, but he still is the figurehead. So even to say, at some point when the new Fed chair comes in, they're not going to cut rates, they're going to hold pat or raise rates, I think he's going to have a very much more dovish spin to his meetings than we see out of Powell, at least the past 3 cuts.
That's a great point. Yeah, because you do see a lot of people suggesting that, well, even if we get a dovish chairman, the decision is still subject to the votes of the 19 other members or 10 other voting members of the FOMC committee. But during the press conference, I mean, that's what moves the markets, right? And so if you have a super dovish press conference, that should help. But I do think he will be able to corral many of the governors, the voters, and move the direction of the rates lower, which we all need. I mean, everything's pointing that way. I also saw gas here in the U.S. is prices of oil actually even around the world and at the pump down massively. And of course, energy costs are a huge contributor to not necessarily the inflation data itself because they discount the energy prices, but it's a huge impact on the feeling that you get when you go into the pump and you're filling up and it's, oh wow, we're sub $3 gas. I haven't seen that in like 5 years. Like holy shit. Oh wow, look, the prices at the grocery store, they're cheaper because food got to get transported and price is lower. Then obviously food prices can go down. So to the standpoint of average everyday American, things are trending in the right direction inflation wise. We need to fix the interest rates. We need to get the labor market humming again. Maybe start some QE to juice things. Did you watch Trump's speech yesterday? And did you have any thoughts around this? It's like a military dividend.
Yeah, I just saw clips. So he's giving a warrior dividend of $1,776 before Christmas to like 1.4 million military servicemen. And I just replied to it and I said, I wonder how many people don't even understand the significance or the meaning behind the 1776 number. So, and of course people, reply, nobody really says them, but it's just funny how people don't even know like the basic history of the country and its founding and everything else. And now we're coming up on the 250-year anniversary and just the lack of patriotism, the lack of self-awareness, the lack of support for America over the past, 4 years, 8 years, 16 years is kind of wild. And, hopefully we get back on track with the people being here actually loving the country, wanting to embrace the culture, want the country to do better, want to keep their money in the country, raise their families here, rather than what we've been seeing. And, you see on TikTok, everybody talking shit on it or saying they don't care about America, they're sending your money back to Mexico, all this other stuff. It's just wild. But I think overall it's a good thing. I'm not a military member. I don't even have family members in military. Would I like $2,000? Sure. But, giving the military a $1,776 dividend check, I can't really complain with that if they're actually out there fighting wars and flying drones and doing everything they're doing.
Yeah, first of all, any military service men or women watching, thank you for your service. We salute you, and you absolutely deserve this stimulus check. I will add one point to what you were saying about sort of the decay of American society. A lot of it is a lack of patriotism. A lot of it is just a lack of education or paying attention in class or trying to better your life, I guess, because, people do not know civics. They do not know history. They do not know about the founding of this country. They couldn't tell you the significance of 1776. I bet you 50% of people, let's say 25%, I don't really say 50%. 25% of people, I bet you if you went on the streets of New York and just polled random people, what happened in 1776 in American history?
They wouldn't know.
They wouldn't know. And I don't know if it's a lack of patriotism. I don't know if it's I hate the country. It's just like I'm dumb and never paid attention in class because I was just swiping through TikTok. Right? Which is a huge problem in and of itself, separate from the patriotism discussion. But as to the financial markets and the impact of this stimulus, do you think any of that money makes its way into the stock market, into crypto? Any chance of that, or they're just going to be like, I'm paying down debts?
I hope so. I kind of thought about that, and I was like, maybe. I think there's two different people in the military. Number one, there's the military guys who have a family, and they're going to be spending that on their kids and their family, and holy cow, babe, we got a, I got a little raise, I'm back home, here's $2,000, let's, fix the house, the white picket fence of the military dream, American dream, whatever. But then there is the guys who are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old dudes who are out here trying to change their lives. And I think those are the guys who are the degenerates and who are willing to throw money on a sports bet or throw money into crypto. So hopefully we get the Christmas rally. Then they get the check and they actually FOMO into crypto rather than FOMOing into Pokemon cards or, betting on black or betting on who's going to win the Super Bowl. Because that's the thing with those guys. It's like, where do they feel they could tear in their 1776 and double it? Is it the red candles of crypto or is it the Broncos going to win? You know what I mean? So it's all a circular thing that we talk about on where is retail at. And retail is not incentivized to come to the crypto markets unless you're a crypto evangelist when you get extra cash, unless you see some green candles and some opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you where they won't be going. or they shouldn't be going, and that's to Pump.fun.
Oh.
They should stay away from that toxic and now what seems to be completely illegal launchpad platform. We've been following this story. Yeah, the Solana chart doesn't look great. I'm not surprised. Been following this story. It keeps getting juicier and juicier. A little background. I actually used to be a lawyer, so some of these concepts are a bit more familiar to me. Perhaps I'll do my best to kind of break it down and explain where things are at with this lawsuit the best I can. But basically, this case has gotten much, much bigger than I think we initially realized. It started with actually a series of lawsuits around the country that were consolidated into one suit. Okay? So you have a lot of different plaintiffs, people saying they lost money on Pump.fun, coming together and suing Pump.fun. They also sued Solana itself, or the foundation, that's what kind of controls the coins and stuff, and the individual founders of those entities. The bombshell sort of revelation that's come out, because apparently 5,000 pages of internal documents between Pump.fun and Solana Foundation and the players there were released. So we have like internal communication between those two entities. And the big bombshell that came out is that not only did they do like, your kind of standard insider trading in terms of like identifying, okay, we're going to walk going on this together at this time, blah, 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 shill it. But that the architecture and the infrastructure of the chain itself was utilized to benefit the Pump.fun insiders. So it goes deeper than just people. It becomes like the technology was tainted in a way. It was used in a conspiratorial manner to essentially steal the funds of those buying into coins after these guys, initiated a pump and dump. So it was more than just, your standard pump and dump scheme. It was really leveraging the technology. This is the claim anyway. And obviously Solana and the defendants will have an opportunity to defend themselves and come up with ulterior, this is not what this evidence shows and blah, blah, blah. They'll defend themselves. But if this is all true, I don't know. If that was the case, you really could see a scenario where the market loses faith in Solana. It doesn't you can't trust it. And if that happens, and enough big VCs, because remember, Solana is like 40% of the supply is controlled by like institutional investors, VCs, big money, etc. If enough of them say, nope, can't trust it, I'm out, I'm done with this scam, you could see Solana crash back down to $10 if enough of the big holders exit. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is bad. This is bad for, if you're a Solana holder, I guess it's probably good if you didn't like Pump.fun. So in that sense, I'm rooting for it. But this is a really big story, guys, and I hope you're following it. I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. We'll have to see. What's your take there, Nick? Do you think people are going to, you think it's meaningful impact, or just kind of, just another lawsuit, whatever, pay the plaintiffs and move on?
Yeah, I think at the forefront, people aren't really talking about this. The Solana people don't want to bring it to light, and then other people, unless you're like a, Ethereum maxi or whatever, or you're doing a show like this, a lot of people are not talking about it, and they'll see. Now, if the case starts accelerating, get higher up in the courts, and people are actually being found guilty, that's a whole different thing, and I think you will see panic selling. So I don't have too much more to add to it. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of indifferent because if they're all found guilty, yes, Solana probably drops, but I think that negatively impacts the market as a whole. Number one, you're going to have people selling other assets because these assets went so low. And then number two, it does put a negative stain as far as mainstream media. They don't really talk too much about our wins, but they definitely will talk about our losses. It deters retail from coming and potentially kills another altcoin ever happening. So it's like, I would rather this just get paid off, nothing too much found. Maybe Pump.fun has to close their doors because I think that would be good for the ecosystem. But I don't really want everybody here. I'm not sitting here like, send them all to jail with pitchforks, because I know that's going to negatively affect our other holdings. It's going to impact Bitcoin. It's going to impact Ethereum, BNB, Pulse Chain, whether it's directly, with people needing to sell those other assets, or indirectly, And just another negative headline. It's not going to say Solana bad, everything else good. It's just going to say Solana bad, crypto scam. You know what I mean? And that just
That's true. The mainstream media will not be nuanced in the reporting of this story if it ever gets out, bigger, it becomes a bigger story than just within the crypto space. I do agree. I mean, it's said that there's always going to be collateral damage from the acts of just a few bad actors. And, you see that time and again in crypto and in the wider financial markets too. Some scammer, look at FTX. I mean, how many billions were wiped out because of basically one guy's fraud. So, yeah, it wouldn't be good if we saw Solana go down. And I would hate to see, honestly, look, there's Solana coins that we still like and support. We talked about Fuck 9 to 5 yesterday. I hate to see them as collateral damage. There's good people in the space that this would hurt. I would love to see, first of all, Pump.fun shut down. If there was actual evidence of fraud and collusion and these obviously pump and dump schemes, then you'd want to see those actors basically brought to justice. You'd want to see any victims get restitution, right? That money going back to, right? That's what FTX had to do. That's not a bad thing. But you wouldn't want to see Solana itself really go down. I don't think that would be very bad collateral damage. So we'll have to see. I don't think this is going away though, man. We can't just be like, oh, I hope it goes away. It doesn't mean it's just gonna. I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. If this lawsuit goes forward here in this jurisdiction, they're gonna get sued in 10 others by thousands of other people. I'm telling you, it's like the Diddy thing. Who watched the Diddy documentary? Go ahead and watch the Diddy documentary, guys. You get one person coming out saying this guy's a scumbag. He raped us. He screwed us over in this, this deal I had with him. And if he's a horrible person, there's now 100 civil lawsuits against Diddy. How many people got fucked over by Pump.fun? This isn't going away. This isn't just going away. Now, the media might not gather it, pay attention. The crypto space might, but it ain't going away. These things just get worse and worse. If you're the defendants, anyway. Better if you're the plaintiffs or you believe in justice. So we'll continue to monitor the story. Is it on par with FTX? No. But is there silver lining? I mean, look, if Pump gets shut down, obviously something else would just pop up or replace it. I already know there's a bunch of Pump.fun copycats. I guess people always find their way into the casino, right?
Well, I guess you hope that the copycats either have better token economics, they're not net extractors, etc. Like the one on Pulse Chain is called Pump Tires. We made some gains off there, whatever, but there is no money fees going to a foundation that's being extracted. All fees are being literally bought and burned to PLS or bought and burned to PLSX and getting bonded and locked in liquidity and everything else. There isn't this overarching fees that's extracting $1 billion from the Solana network like Pump.fun did.
Yeah, and there also isn't collusion from the highest levels of pump tires to basically pump and dump and wreck people, which is what this lawsuit's about, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think this story isn't going anywhere. I think there will be some silver linings. Hope there's not too much collateral damage along the way. I hold some Solana. I don't want to see it go to zero. To be honest, I do think there is still value in having a fast, cheap chain. And that's what Solana represents. So, by the way, shout out to Frank. Good morning, my friend. Good mornings up, boys. Got nice CPI numbers. Let's see how the Fed does. Yeah. 50. Yeah, the 50. Yeah, the you guys got to watch this P. Diddy thing. I did not know. I knew about, some of the stuff, a lot of the sexual deviancy and stuff, because that was all over the media. But I didn't know this dude killed Tupac.
Oh, for sure.
This dude killed Tupac. And then led Biggie, basically to his death. And sort of, you would assume he kind of had to know he's putting Biggie in danger. Did you watch the documentary?
I had it on in the background. I didn't pay attention too much, but I mean,
No.
I'm not really in that scene, but in that scene, and yeah, everybody just assumed it's he killed Tupac, led Biggie to his death, and now this comes out and kind of confirms it. But that's been going on for decades. Just nobody could really prove it. But now it looks more and more clear when you have kind of video evidence and voice recordings and everything else that they
You
had
even got
going
the
on.
testimony from a detective. I mean, this was, people are going to say, oh, well, 50 Cent, he hates Diddy. He put out a hit piece. Whatever. It's like, dude, unless 50 Cent somehow hired the best actors to just make up stories and just convince everyone in these interviews, I mean, this is what happened.
Also, if you're an actor, you probably don't want to go on and lie in a public facing about Diddy because he has good lawyers and he could sue you for defamation if you are lying and or get you killed. So, you probably are a truth teller if you're getting on there.
No, the detective wasn't an actor. That's a real detective. I mean, right? It's great. I guess, see, I didn't know that people knew that 50 Cent, or excuse me, that Diddy had Tupac killed. I didn't know that was like common knowledge. Like I thought that was like unsolved thing, gangbangers, whatever. But it's like clearly like murder for hire. Honestly, is really what that was, and it's crazy. He hasn't been brought to justice on that. So yeah. Anywho,
NASDAQ gapping up higher here, so we want stocks to work higher to help Bitcoin out. It gapped today on the news of the lower CPI that Frank was talking about. We talked about that earlier in the show. If you want to watch our detailed breakdown on that, or should you be betting on Polymarket, we think you should. The odds just went 4% against us, or in our favor. But I mean, if you're betting on it, you're gonna lose a little bit of gains now. But what you want to see is NASDAQ continue to hold up here. Even if it came down to red, that would just kind of suck. We'll see how Bitcoin and crypto would react to that. And hopefully we can break to new highs on the NASDAQ. But what we want is gold to not break to new highs here and to drop down. Because remember, last time we called the exact high of the day on gold, there was a massive rotation into Bitcoin. Gold, we called the high on. Bitcoin ran from 80K to 116K on this dip. And Bitcoin has been going down ever since gold has been grinding higher again. So we would like to get rejected here and see us drop again on gold. I think that helps Bitcoin out in the rotation narrative. But then also looking at the stock market, we saw some weakness in the NASDAQ, but it gapped higher today on the news that inflation was lower than expectations.
I don't mind the stock market taking a bit of a breather. I mean, we were just at all-time highs on the NASDAQ, S&P 500 like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know what it was. Literally all-time highs for, the stock indices. I don't mind taking a little bit of a breather here, a little bit of a consolidation. It's fine. I mean, it's funny how like my views on my stock portfolio are so different than views on my crypto.
Well, that's because stocks are way up. Crypto is not. that's the thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, that is probably most to do with it. But it's also, I think, maybe I'm just trained or something to think about stocks as very long-term things. And so, like, I don't really check the value of my stock portfolio often. Because when I do, it's up or down like an imperceptible amount. I'm like, wait, well, I just checked it. Is that, or I can't even remember what it was prior. It's like, it looks the same. It's the same. It doesn't really go up or down very much. And so I just don't worry about it. And I'm like, it's long term and it's going to be fine. It's all going to work out. My crypto portfolio, and by the way, I'm mostly just in Bitcoin, Ethereum. I have a little bit of Solana and some random altcoins, like 5 or 6 of them. My portfolio is scaled way down from years past. It's just, I guess, but you got to get in that. You got to get in the same mindset, I think, with your crypto and your Bitcoin, etc., as you do with your stocks. As long as you're in the blue chip assets, and that way you kind of can shrug off these painful periods because it's a 10-year thing, 20-year investment. Shout out to Hexbull. Thank you for watching the replay, by the way, my good friend. Made money in Hex early, selling at 30 cents. Never shorted. He doesn't trade. That's great. Yeah, man. I'm happy for you. I really can't wait to get back to the days of average, everyday retail being able to make life-changing money on altcoins. We haven't seen that in 2 years. I know a little bit. We had meme season. Maybe a few people made it. Most people, I think, got wrecked. We haven't had sustained alt season uptrend since 2021. And it just sucks because it means retail can't make money. I mean, institutions have made money. Whales have made money. Maybe some very good, perpetuals traders on Hyperliquid have made money. But most people have not made money in crypto in 2 years. And it's fucking painful. Okay, here's Frank. He's out here
Video
playing with
short.
leverage.
Sheesh.
Out here playing with leverage. I mean, obviously, stock market doesn't move quite as violently, but 15x seems like a lot of leverage to me. So be very careful. Monitor your position closely. Have stop losses in place. We don't want to see you get liquidated. It is just brutal out there. These markets just move fast, violently up or down. Oh, this reminds me actually of a huge story. Maybe you want to talk about the NVIDIA trade a bit, and then we'll get to the Coinbase opening up stock trading story.
Yeah, I mean, NVIDIA here, you're shorting right on a relief rally today, so I guess your expectations is this is just a relief rally and you're going to drop below this moving average, and then you get kind of a free fall. You really don't have support all the way down to 153 per share. That could work out. I don't really like to short on support levels, but we'll see what happens here. I guess if you just shorted an hour ago, you did it on this relief rally, so you bought yourself a few percentage points of leeway, as it is up 2.5% today before you started shorting. So we'll see how that plays out. Of course, you're looking for the breakdown in the NASDAQ, NVIDIA to break down below this moving average, and then you can kind of be in profit wherever you want and call your own shot, but there's major support all the way down at $153 to $155, which is $20 per share lower.
Yeah, I don't know what reasons he had for shorting it. Was it fundamental or just chart-based? From my perspective, NVIDIA is a great long-term investment because we know AI is not going anywhere. It's just going to continue to accelerate its adoption. And they're basically underpinning their CPUs or GPUs or whatever that technology underpins most, if not all, of the AI architecture and infrastructure. So, best of luck with the short. I did want to, it did remind me of a big story that dropped yesterday. Perhaps you can pull it up, about Coinbase enabling stock trading on their platform. And then what does this mean and then you actually pair that with the news that I think sometime in 2026, we're going to have basically 24/7 trading of stocks. Right now, obviously, stock market closes at like 4:30. You can't make any trade. You can place trades. They won't execute up until the morning. Weekends, it's closed. So apparently stock market's going to be 24/7. It's going to be on Coinbase. First of all, do you good for Coinbase stock, good for your Coinbase play? And then let's talk, what does this mean for crypto and altcoins? Because
I don't think it's really a positive for crypto and altcoins. That's
no.
Focusing effort and dev hours to be able to trade stocks. Now I see what they're doing as far as the positioning for when stocks are 24-hour traded. They already got the infrastructure for 24-hour trading due to the cryptos on their platform. But I think, out of their big announcements, the stocks is more of a bearish one than anything when it comes to crypto. I think it should be more focused on prediction markets and then millions of DEX assets, as they're trying to really embrace Base, make it easy to onboard people into these layer 2s, into, decentralized exchanges when they get onboarded into Coinbase, rather than focusing on keeping them all on centralized exchanges for the fees.
Yeah. If you're an investor in Coinbase, the stock, this is a good thing. It's going to drive more revenue to the company, increase the share price. If you're all in on altcoins, this is not good. Because, think about it from an average retail investor standpoint or trader standpoint. Why am I going into the trenches where we know there's manipulation and apparently collusion and fraud and all this stuff happening, like on Pump.fun or whatever? Why am I taking that kind of risk and playing an unfair playing field when I can go on Coinbase, I can invest in stocks, probably with some degree of leverage. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to have some kind of leverage available, because most degens, they don't just want to see like 5% returns a year. They need some leverage in their lives for excitement. But at least those are regulated markets. You're not going to have quite the overt. I know there's manipulation in the stock market too, but I don't know if it's as overt and obvious and excessive as you see in crypto. So I don't know. I'd see a lot of people probably saying, well, F this. I'm not going to the trenches. I'm going to try and make money in this more regulated, more fairer market, even if it's maybe a little bit less exciting, maybe a little less upside. At least for now. I mean, I assume once we get back to super bullish times in crypto and you start to see those 10Xs, I did a 10X, I did a 20X, I did 100X stories popping up all over your social media feed, people will get back into the trenches hunting for the 100X.
Yeah, I know who's not bearish. ARK and Kathy Woods just bought another $10.56 million of Bitmine. That is BMNR. That is Thomas Lee's Ethereum DAT, the number one DAT in the world right now. And 5.9 million of Coinbase stock and 8.85 million of Bullish on Wednesday. Kathy Woods says a real break in inflation is coming in 2026. We do know that CPI data is lower than expectations. I don't know if there's going to be a real break in inflation. I mean, I keep saying 2 to 3% is my goal, and I think we stay in that range for the duration of Trump's presidency. I like what they're doing. I like how they're bringing in more funds, et cetera, et cetera. We've been right on that so far for the first year. But I don't know if a real break in inflation just automatically means crypto rallies. Of course, maybe she's saying, hey, a break in inflation means people have more excess funds, means the Fed cuts rate, and that's how we get more liquidity and a boost to the markets overall. And maybe this just snippet of real break is kind of a short form of her larger discussion.
Yeah, I mean, lower inflation in and of itself, that's not what pumps the risk assets. It's lower inflation combined with bad labor market equals Fed cutting rates and starting quantitative easing, then risk assets pump. So we're a few steps away. We're heading in the right direction. I think we're going to get there in 2026. But, Kathy Wood, apparently she was on a pretty impressive losing streak. Apparently her fund was down like terribly. People were, calling her whatever, reputation, blah, blah, blah. And then she's been on a big winning streak recently. So, good for her. She's very active with her trades, I've noticed. She's buying and selling stuff every day, which I guess that works for her. But it's funny how sentiment can shift and the opinions can shift. But good work, Kathy Wood, still shilling crypto, buying crypto-related stocks. We got Frank. Bank of Japan meeting tomorrow. We could see some dumps. Yeah, I mean, this is going back to discussion we've had a few times now. How much of this weakness is a result of the Bank of Japan increasing their interest rates and then essentially causing investors who had borrowed the yen to have to pay it back and sell assets to pay back.
Yeah, we talked about this pretty heavily yesterday. So if you want to pull that up, there was like 3 bullet points of why this one could be different than past. Obviously, the past 3 times that Japan raised interest rates, you saw like a 20% correction in Bitcoin. But arguably, that's what the correction that we could have already seen. And why is that? This is the first time in the past 3 times that the market really has had plenty of time to kind of price it in, as the poly market has been above 80% for quite a while. It was 90% 2 live shows ago, and it's like 98% now. So I don't think this is going to catch anybody off guard. This isn't going to be a surprise. This has been talked about for a month now, and poly markets had it at over 80% chance of happening for over a month. So a lot of the big traders, smart guys, if you think they saw that a month and a half ago, and they're not positioning for that, I think this is one of the times where it may already be priced in a big way because it's such a foregone conclusion at this point. That doesn't mean you won't see a red candle. It doesn't mean you won't see a capitulation down, but I don't think this is like, Japan raised rates. Last time this happened, we had a prolonged another 20 to 25% downturn in Bitcoin and assets. I don't see it that way because the macros and the fundamentals around the rate cut is totally different than the past 3 times.
I think it's going to come down to the press conference, like it always does with Powell and then with these other, Federal Reserve entities around the world. I saw some posts a day or 2 ago. I don't know if it was from officials over there or what the source exactly was, but it was suggesting that they would actually be undertaking some kind of stimulus along with the increase of rate. They would also be combining that with some degree of stimulus. And if they do that and they come out and say dovish things, and you could easily see a situation where you get the decision it pumps. So look, like any of these Fed meeting days, expect volatility. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some downside, but I agree with Nick. It's probably priced in, and then who knows what they say at the conference. Dovish, hawkish, bullish, bearish. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We continue to hodl.
Bitcoin up here at the highs for the day, 89,225. Again, we still need to break above the yellow line. So that would be now breaking above $90,000. Close it, attack the red line, which is at 94,900, and bake above 95,000 by the end of the year. So we'll see. If the seller hasn't sold yet today, please don't sell into this rally and just let us get to the next level. Don't you want to make more money when you sell your 15,000 Bitcoin? Just let it run to 95,000, 93, 92 rather than selling in the 80s. If you just stop selling for a few days, it'll get there, and you've already sold a bulkier position anyways.
Yeah, it's what 10:42 where I'm at, and we haven't seen the seller come online, I guess, which is maybe a good thing. But this was kind of like, remember yesterday? I think it was like 11 or 12. Like the market ran for a few hours, and I was kind of like, "Hey, great, we're in a good shape here," and then bam. And I don't think that was the seller though. I think that was the market makers. I think that was a coordinated. I mean these entities, if these ex posts that I see are to be believed, these entities move in tandem. You see Coinbase, Binance, Wintermute, and like a few
if your
all
books
buying
aren't
and
looking
selling at the same time.
Yeah, if your books aren't looking good, the quickest way is just to keep liquidating all the leverage traders to fill back up your books. So, I mean, that was quite the run yesterday, and then gave it all back. It's like, oh, liquidated $150 million on the way up, 45 million 3 minutes later as we went down, and then we're back to the same level. So all in all, they're like, oh, we didn't hurt the Bitcoin price. We're up $200, and we made $175 million off of it. Thanks. It's like, wow, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the trend and the story since October. Even before that, I mean, you saw mass liquidations happening with a lot of manipulation, and you just kind of have to wonder, like, at what point does retail say enough is enough? They either look elsewhere or they just stop doing leverage trading. I don't know. It's a lot of risk in these markets, a lot of manipulation. So be careful out there. I'm glad to see Frank is still bullish about 2026. I mean, we are too. We are bullish about 2026. We are bullish about 2025. And if you look at the macro situation, it's been pretty much all bullish for the most part. I mean, in terms of adoption and even Fed policy, it's trending in the right direction, all that stuff. And yet price is where it's at. Maybe we should be happy because we're still close to $100,000 Bitcoin. But we are down for the year. I mean, what was Bitcoin at this time last year? I mean, we were.
I think we are still down for the year. The yearly candle's closing soon, and it's if we can rally a couple $1,000, we'll be flat on the year. So we shall see.
2025. Big disappointment for us bulls, anyway. I know you.
Well, that's not even just for the bulls. That's for even if you're a 4-year cyclist. You didn't even You didn't get new highs on anything except for Bitcoin, which didn't even do a 2x. You didn't get highs on Ethereum. You got highs on BNB at 90%. Not even a 2x on BNB for new all-time highs. I mean, I think the high last cycle when we were selling was like $650, and what we hit, 1,000 or 1,200 briefly, like not even a 2x. So if you're a 4-year cyclist bull, you got very minimal gains for your expectations. And now you're maybe in cash and you're like, all right, I'm going to catch this next bear market and catch the exact low. If you're a 5-year cyclist like that, under performance in 2025, but you still have the hopium of 2026, it's just been ugly. I mean, the previous high on Bitcoin was 69,000. We hit 126. So if the bull market is actually over, that is pathetic. You had BNB not give you a double up, Bitcoin not give you a double up, Ethereum you could have made money for 10 minutes. No new all-time high in 5 years.
It was a glorious 10 minutes. I remember it was in August when ETH hit like $5,000 on that wick. And I was actually down in Mexico, and I was drinking a beer, and I took a picture and said to my friends, like, all right, guys, ETH all-time highs. I'm retiring. I'm retiring in Mexico. I have my beer. And a week later, like, nope, back to work. Yeah, this market's been fucking brutal. This market's been 20. But look, anyone who's kind of questioning, like, how are you guys bullish about 26? Check out Raoul Paul. I'll type the name here. Raoul Paul. Check his content out. Yeah. He's the one who kind of opened my eyes anyway to the 5-year cycle and the underlying basis for that, which was the Fed's decision to essentially roll over the. It was to pause the debt or some. It was to. They had engineered a 5-year cycle. They could have rolled over the debt out to 4 years, but they extended it out. I think that's what it was. And so that basically meant that the Fed, the markets, everything is now aligned around lowering rates in 2026 rather than it happening in 2025, which would have been it would have been on 25, but they moved out 26, as I understand it. Maybe Nick, you have a better better kind of take on that, but it all comes down to the rollover of the debt, as I understand it.
I was trying to pull up the ISM chart here, but you got to go to the monthly and it's not really loading. But the ISM number is currently at 48. It did mark the last 3 times that the ISM topped, which is the business cycle, which happened to be on 4 years, which happened to call the exact tops on the Bitcoin cycle 3 times in a row, and expanded each of the last 3 times. So for everybody who is the halvening cyclists, that's why people are now saying, well, maybe it's ISM and not so much about the halving, because the ISM was 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. That just happened to line up with the Bitcoin halving, but it also expanded each time as Bitcoin grew, as the business cycle grew. So if you're looking at an expansion again, you need to get like 68 ISM for the Bitcoin top. Even if you want to go back to the 2013 cycle, you need in the high 50s for the ISM for it to call the Bitcoin top. And right now, we've been sitting at 48 for month after month after month, telling you ISM has done nothing but consolidate, has not even risen to previous ISM top cycles, much rather expanded like we've seen 3 times in a row.
2026. Hopefully Frank's AVAX play bears fruit for him in 2026. I don't know a ton about Avalanche. Obviously, it's an L1. It's a smart contract platform. It's fast. It's cheap. I remember it had some hype at some point in 2021. I remember a few projects we invested in launched on AVAX on Avalanche, more gaming projects related. I don't know too much about AVAX. I just, I think it's very tough for an L1 at this point to beat Ethereum. And I guess you could say, well, we don't need to beat Ethereum. We just need it to do well and outperform for a while in the alt season. Okay, that's true. But if you're talking about a long-term investment, how is any of these L1s going to beat Ethereum at this point, which has the institutional adoption, has most of the DeFi, it's got the ETF, it's got clarity from the SEC that's a commodity, not a security. I could go on and on. So I just feel like Ethereum is probably going to end up outperforming over the long haul pretty much every other smart contract like L1, including Solana, by the way. BNB will probably have, a lot of them will probably have moments of outperformance during the height of a bull market. But I'm not a big believer in mid-cap L1s. That's just my opinion.
Here's the ISM chart. Finally got it to pull up. So if you guys want to take a look at this, the United States ISM Purchasing Managers Index, you can always pull this up and take a look. This was the 2013, the first bull market in Bitcoin, and it called the exact top at around 56, 57, 58. The next one, the 2017 run, called the exact top at the high. It expanded like I talked about. The high was 61 instead of 58. And then the next one, this was the 2021 run. Massive expansion up to 64, and this was the exact top on Bitcoin once again. Does that mean that history has to repeat itself? No, but the 4-year halving cyclists have leaned on history to repeat itself. Well, when you look at the bigger macros, because crypto and Bitcoin is reliant on global macros and monetary supply and everything else, and of course the business cycle, at least the past 3 times, we're down here for a long time. Since May of 2023, the ISM has just been lingering with the slow grind. So even if you think, well, maybe we stop expanding, things are different this time around. Do you think we at least get to the moving averages, the 52, 53? The previous highs of 56 to 58? If you do, historically, that tells you that Bitcoin still has higher to go, and there's more gains to be made in risk on assets. Now, if you're on the theory that we're going to expand, here's the average trend line, which means we'd be down into the 60s, and then the expansion trend line would be all the way up here. So who knows what happens overall, but if I look at this as another data point, this is what Raoul Paul's looking at as well, the business cycle has switched from a 4-year cycle that it's been consistently for generations, for decades, to now potentially a 5-year cycle, which means we have higher to go, I put the white line here, the red lines. I got the oversold readings down here. So we'll be following along, because if we're right, these are moments in time that we'll be looking to take some risk off the table, take some profits at the time, take some froth out of the portfolio, either down here on the indicators or up here at resistance levels. And if you're the super cyclists, Thomas Lee, they want to see ISM expansion, and you're going to get up here approaching 70, marking a top for Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think that's how you get to the heady numbers that they're saying, like 500,000 Bitcoin that they're talking about this cycle, which I think is still crazy. But 244,000 probably happens if you get here. 180,000 probably happens if you get here. So let's see what happens with the ISM. Let's see what happens with QE. I know if what's his name is in here, Hexbull, he's about to come yell at me, but he's talking about a relief rally to 110 and then a dump to 40K, and I keep saying, hey, I will take a relief rally of Bitcoin to 110. That would put Ethereum back close to 5,000. That would put Pulse Chain assets way up. At least then we can reevaluate and maybe take potential profits, even if the bear market is here.
I wouldn't hate $110,000 Bitcoin right now either. I don't think anyone would. I don't know, looking at this ISM data here, if we get back to or exceed the top of the prior business cycle. Because remember, that happened in the midst of COVID. And during COVID, they printed $3 trillion. And they handed every American a $2,000 check or whatever it was.
I didn't get one.
Okay, well, a lot of people got one. I don't know. You had to be under a certain income. I don't know. Whatever it was. That was a massive, crazy stimulus. We'd never seen that kind of stimulus before. And it ended up being a mistake. That much stimulus. Because it led to 26% inflation like a year later. So I don't think they do that. There will be no reason to do that. Absent like another pandemic or something. So I don't think we get back there. I do think we get back to the trend line. I do think we get back to maybe a few, it does increase, maybe back to levels we saw in the previous cycle, whatever, two ago. I do think we get the QE. I just don't think it's going to be crazy money printer, $1 trillion minted overnight at the Fed, handed out to the banks, and every American gets a check. I mean, it just doesn't seem realistic, that scenario, but we don't need that scenario for crypto and Bitcoin, etc., to do well. We just need a little bit of expansion, a little bit of quantitative easing, a little bit of economic activity and stock market doing well, etc., for us to get back to where we want to be. We'll see if Nick's 244 Bitcoin price prediction plays out. Is that what? Now, is that... I know you had that initially for end of 25. Are you pushing that out to end of 26 now because of the 5 years?
No, I think, originally when I said it was all the way back in December 2024 when I hit the target of getting 100,000 Bitcoin within 2024. And that was under the assumption that, hey, 244,000 market top, which if we're on a 4-year cycle, that would be 2025 or like January, February of 2026. So I think it would just be nice to see it this cycle. And I think it's very possible. Again, we'll see what happens with the ISM, with the expansion, with everything else, and you really need these 4-year cyclists to be proven wrong and then FOMO back in. But yeah, I'm going to stay with 244,000 Bitcoin. If that happens, that's how you get a $22,000 ETH. And the assumption that Ethereum continues to outperform Bitcoin has been what's happening. And I think there's a lot more upside to go to where you almost get like to that 10-to-1 ratio, which means, all right, if Bitcoin tops at 180,000, you're looking at a $15,000 to $18,000 Ethereum. So wherever you want to fall on that spectrum, I think you're going to get that Ethereum rally, which is going to help alts before this is all said and done. And when I look at this ISM chart, you're literally at the lows, historical average lows on ISM. This white line is kind of the average tops for the business cycle. If you take out and do all the averages, that's still a long way to go. That's like just shy of 60. And we got to 62 in the 2017 run. So even if you exclude the 2020 run, you say, hey, we're not getting an expansion. If we can just get back to 56 to 60, that's still a long ways for here. And historically, that would show you that Bitcoin has a long way to go as well.
Whether we hit 244, 180, 150, we're certainly going higher than we are now. And I do believe we will have an alt season. I don't think every single alt will do well, but I think a lot will do very well for discrete periods of time. You have to remember to take profits during those frothy moments. I hope Frank is right for his sake, that AVAX outperforms. Apparently there's a lot of activity, institutions and banks using the platform. That's great to hear, man. That's great to hear. I'm glad to see any kind of blockchain getting real world adoption. Isn't that what we're all here for? I didn't get into the space 8-9 years ago, whatever it was, because I felt we needed a meme coin casino. I got in because I thought blockchain technology represented major disruption and improvement on existing, kind of fintech rails, and also existing monetary policy. Could open up whole new product sectors, improve people's lives, and of course benefit investors along the way as it gets adoption and improves society. I didn't get here because I didn't get into crypto because, oh yay, fart coin is going to run today. So hopefully we get a little sanity back in these markets. I do think Pump.fun was actually a terrible thing that happened to crypto. Even if for a moment it was fun for a while, it ended up not being fun, didn't it? So let's get back to the good old days. I love to see AVAX getting some real world adoption. Love to see Bitcoin back at 100 and whatever thousand. We'll get there, folks. We'll get there. It's just been 2025 has been a slog, a tough slog, but we're staying positive. We're hanging in there. I hope you guys are too. We got to jump off onto a client call in about 2 minutes, but I appreciate everyone's time today, and until tomorrow, we'll see you on the beach.